Nestled in the bustling urban jungle of Bonifacio Global City, my townhouse was a cozy haven amidst the chaos. With its typical horizontal setup, the main door opened directly into my living room. A few steps further, and you'd find yourself in the kitchen and dining area. To the right of the kitchen were the stairs leading up to my bedroom on the second floor. The place was compact but comfortable, perfect for someone like me who cherished simplicity. I always kept the lights on at night, fearing the pitch-black darkness that seemed to swallow the space whole. Friday marked the end of the work week, and the anticipation of the weekend always brought a sense of relief. After my shift, my colleagues and I decided to unwind with a few beers on 4th Street. It was a night of laughter and camaraderie, a chance to forget the pressures of work. However, as the night wore on, I drank a bit more than I usually would. Instead of heading to Laguna as I had initially planned, I decided to return to my townhouse to rest. As soon as I stepped into my apartment, an inexplicable heaviness settled over me. It felt as if an invisible pair of eyes were following my every move. Despite the lights illuminating every corner of the house, the feeling of being watched was unnerving. I shrugged it off, attributing it to the alcohol and the lateness of the hour. After a quick shower, I walked into the living room. That's when I noticed something strange, a familiar scent hanging in the air. It was my perfume, unmistakably so, as if someone had just sprayed it moments ago. Confused, I hurried to my bedroom, where I was met with an even more unsettling sight. My perfume bottle, wallet, and motorcycle keys were neatly arranged on my bed, as if someone had thoughtfully laid them out for me. A chill ran down my spine. I had no memory of doing this myself, and the precision with which they were placed made my skin crawl. Panic set in as I realized it was just past 3 a.m. I quickly dressed, gathered my things, and made a hasty exit. In my rush, I forgot to charge my phone and left the charger behind. Before leaving, I meticulously turned off all the lights and checked the sockets to ensure nothing was plugged in. I was in the garage, feeling a bit more composed with my motorcycle's engine purring beneath me. My mind wandered to thoughts of food, and I momentarily forgot the bizarre occurrences inside. But as I glanced back at the townhouse, my blood ran cold. Through the window of my living room, I saw myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring back at me. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of the light or a reflection. But there was no mistaking it. I was looking at a mirror image of myself. Frozen in place, the figure sat calmly, almost mockingly, at the table. Fear surged through me, and I began to pray under my breath. Without another thought, I revved my engine and sped off, not daring to look back. The next morning, I called my landlord, informing him of my immediate decision to move out. I couldn't stay another night in that townhouse. With my brother by my side for support, I returned to pack up my belongings. The place felt different in the daylight, less sinister, but the memory of that night lingered, casting long shadows in every room. As we loaded the last of my things, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. My brother, sensing my unease, tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but even he could tell there was something off about the place. To this day, I have no explanation for what happened. Was it a warning, a manifestation of my stress, or something far more sinister? The image of myself sitting at that kitchen table haunts my dreams, a constant reminder of the unknown terror I escaped from that night. I've moved on to a new apartment, but the memory of that doppelganger still chills me to the core. Despite my resolve to move on, curiosity gnawed at me. The inexplicable events of that night refused to fade into obscurity. I decided to delve deeper into the history of the townhouse, hoping to uncover some rational explanation. With the help of my brother, who shared my growing obsession, we began our investigation. We started by talking to the landlord, an elderly man named Mr. Santos. He was reluctant at first, dismissing our questions with vague reassurances. However, as we pressed on, his demeanor shifted, and he finally relented. "There's been some unusual activity reported by previous tenants," he admitted, eyes darting nervously. "But nothing harmful, just strange." He told us about a previous tenant, a young woman named Isabel, who had lived there a few years before me. She too had experienced inexplicable events, objects moving on their own, strange noises at odd hours, and a constant feeling of being watched. Isabel had eventually moved out abruptly, much like I had, unable to cope with the relentless unease. Intrigued, but not yet satisfied, my brother and I visited the local library to dig through old records and newspapers. We discovered that the land on which the townhouse complex was built had a dark history. Decades ago, it was the site of a series of mysterious disappearances. People reported seeing apparitions and hearing voices calling out in the night. The area was eventually abandoned and remained desolate until the townhouse complex was constructed. Armed with this knowledge, we sought out a local historian, Ms. Delgado, who specialized in urban legends and paranormal activity. She listened intently as we recounted our experiences and shared our findings. "The land itself could be cursed," she explained, her voice grave. "Or it could be that the spirits of those who disappeared are still trapped, trying to communicate with the living. Your encounter with the doppelganger is particularly disturbing. In many cultures, seeing one's double is considered a bad omen, often associated with death or severe misfortune." Her words sent a chill down my spine. Could the doppelganger have been a warning, a premonition of some impending danger? Determined to find closure, we decided to conduct one final investigation. Equipped with a voice recorder, a camera, and a strong resolve, my brother and I returned to the townhouse one last time. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation as we entered the now empty space. It felt like stepping into a tomb, the silence oppressive and suffocating. We set up the camera in the living room, aiming it toward the kitchen, and placed the voice recorder on the table where I had seen my double. Then we waited. Hours passed with no activity. The tension grew unbearable, but we refused to leave until we had answers. Just as we were about to call it a night, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. The camera flickered and the recorder picked up a faint whisper. We strained to listen, barely daring to breathe. The whisper grew louder, more distinct. It was a voice, raspy and urgent, speaking in a language neither of us understood. Goosebumps prickled our skin as we realized we were not alone. Suddenly, the whisper stopped, replaced by a deafening silence. The temperature plunged further, and we saw it. A shadowy figure standing at the top of the stairs, identical to me in every way. It stared down at us with hollow eyes, its presence exuding malice. My brother and I froze, paralyzed by fear. The doppelganger descended the stairs slowly, its movements deliberate and eerie. As it reached the bottom, it raised a hand, pointing directly at me. The voice recorder crackled to life, repeating the same unintelligible phrase over and over. Panicking, my brother grabbed my arm, and we bolted for the door. We didn't stop running until we were safely outside, gasping for breath under the harsh glare of the streetlights. Back at our new apartment, we played back the recording. The voice was clearer now, repeating the same phrase in a rhythmic cadence. We sent the audio to Ms. Delgado, hoping she could decipher it. The next day, she called us with grim news. The phrase was in an ancient dialect, roughly translating to, "The cycle will continue." She explained that the land might be cursed, trapping those who lived there in a perpetual loop of fear and despair. Unable to shake the sense of dread, I decided to leave Bonifacio Global City altogether. My brother and I moved to a different city, far from the haunted townhouse. Life slowly returned to normal, but the experience left an indelible mark on us both. Years later, I still think about the doppelganger and the events that transpired in that townhouse. The sense of being watched, the eerie scent of my perfume, the ghostly figure at the kitchen table, all remain vivid in my mind. Despite the distance and the passage of time, I occasionally feel a chill, as if a part of that darkness still lingers with me. The townhouse remains occupied, with new tenants unaware of its sinister past. I can only hope they never encounter the terror that haunted me. For now, I focus on living my life, cherishing the ordinary moments, but always with a wary eye on the shadows, never forgetting the warning of the doppelganger. The cycle will continue.